Many of the synchronous functions that we generally work with throw errors when something goes wrong. This makes it difficult to use these functions when writing code in a functional style, since we shouldn't be throwing errors. Let's see how we can actually get interoperability with either and convert these functions into functions that no longer throw but return either's. For example, let's take the JSON.parse function, which given a string to parse as JSON, returns the parsed JSON or throws an error if the string to parse is not valid JSON. Instead of using JSON.parse directly, we want to create our own JSON parse function, which returns an either error or unknown, where the unknown represents the successfully parsed JSON, while the error is a normal error object. Let's initially see how to implement JSON parse in an imperative style using a try-catch block. So we first try to parse the given text as JSON by using JSON.parse, and if it is successful, we return the result as a write. Otherwise, if JSON.parse throws an exception, we catch it, convert it to an error object, and return a left with that error. This works, but it is verbose and not functional at all. So this is where FPTS comes to the rescue. Turns out that the either module provides some utils that can make implementing this interoperability with either much simpler. The first util we will look at is either.tryCatch, which creates an either from a function that might throw. It takes a function f that might throw as the first argument and an onThrow function as second argument. The purpose of onThrow is to convert the unknown exception that the function f might throw into a concrete error object. Finally, tryCatch returns an either EA, where the E comes from onThrow and the A is the value returned by f. Let's now use tryCatch to define our JSON parse function. So we pass a function that returns the result of calling JSON.parse with the text and then a function that converts the unknown exception into an error object. As you can see, this is a lot cleaner as we are no longer using the tryCatch block. Also note that for the conversion from the unknown exception to an error object, there is already a util that FPTS provides that does exactly that. This util is either.toError, so we can directly use it here instead of manually doing the conversion. Now, notice how our JSON parse function takes the text parameter and then just passes it through to JSON.parse. Wouldn't it be great if we don't have to create a wrapper function that just passes through arguments? We can actually achieve that by using the either.tryCatchK util, which directly converts a function that might throw into one returning an either. It takes a function f that takes some arguments and might throw, and the onThrow function as second argument, and returns a function taking the same arguments as f and returning an either. Let's actually use tryCatchK to make the implementation of JSON parse even more concise. So we pass JSON.parse as first argument and toError as second argument. As you can see, tryCatchK takes directly JSON.parse and converts it into a function that returns an either. However, there are a few things that you should keep in mind when using tryCatchK. First, if you look at the resulting type of JSON parse, you can see that it now takes not only the text, but also a reviver parameter, which is the same that JSON.parse takes. This is because the function that tryCatchK creates takes exactly the same arguments as the function that you pass to it. Second, notice that it now returns an either whose write value has type any instead of unknown. This is because JSON.parse returns any, not unknown. If you want, you can fix this by declaring a more restricted type of JSON parse manually. Also note that we currently return a left with a simple error object. However, you might want to return a better error type to be able to pattern match the errors that you get across different functions. So in this case, we could define a custom JSON parse error as an object that has a type and a raw error, and then update our JSON parse function to return that error object instead. So if we call our JSON parse function with a valid JSON string representing an object, we get back a write with the parsed object. On the other hand, if we call it with an invalid JSON string, we get back a left with the JSON parse error.